general information, and then we'll get into the specific questions. So we'll start with you, Rachel.
My name is Rachel Towley, and I am visually impaired, and I am here at Everett Community College to get my AA transfer, and I hope to become a physical therapist someday.
Awesome.
Excellent.
At the table.
My name is LaDonna Underwood. I have anxiety, and I am here getting my AA in criminal justice.
Hi, my name is Tyler Ambrose. I have a reading disability, and I'm here to get my AA in nutrition.
Hi, my name is Shayna Wilson. I have dyslexia, ADHD, anxiety, depression, anything and everything that there is to do with reading and disabilities, math especially. Sometimes I have problems with disorientation. Right now, I'm at North Seattle Community College, and I've been there for about 4 years. I'm trying to get into nursing school. And so, right now, my pipe dream, I'd love to be a surgical nurse, but someday I want to teach nursing with an emphasis on helping people with learning disabilities.
My name is Lisa. I am a student at North Seattle Community College. I have PTSD, anxiety disorder, bipolar, end-stage renal disease, chronic pain. I have a service dog named Buddy, who's semi-retired, and I'm working on my AA in early childhood education, and hopefully my dream is that when I turn 70 and retire from work, I open my own child care center for children with special needs.
And you know me, hi, my name is Martin Trinidad. I attend Clover Park Technical College, pursuing a degree in computer networking and information system security. My disability is service-connected PTSD and chronic pain.
Okay, so coming here and talking about something that you may have struggled with or may have difficulty with is really a difficult thing. So I just want us to kind of be aware that these people are really going out of their way and kind of opening up themselves, so be gentle. So what I'd like for each of you or whoever wants to answer is, what do you think it's important that other leaders in the college communities know about working with people with different types of disabilities? So anybody can just jump in.
I think it's really important to understand that people with learning disabilities, or any student, learns differently. There's auditory learning, there's visual learning, there's kinesthetic. I consider myself to be a global learner, which means in order to pick up the same amount of information as an average student, I have to work 5 times as hard and read the information, 5 times as much. And so, I think it's important to know that, and I think it's even more important to educate educators on people about that certain aspect.
Let me just interject that sometimes faculty members really aren't aware how to provide accommodations. They may know everything about chemistry or biology or whatever they're teaching, but may know diddly squat about communicating with people with disabilities or why somebody needs materials differently or learns differently. So sometimes we have to educate the educators, just like you're saying.
Self-advocacy is very important.
Okay.
Letting people know that you have a learning disability and you have set accommodations, and to be firm about it, and also to not get discouraged. I think, I grew up all throughout, high school and elementary school, just kind of being angry about my disability, how much further other people were along, and I started kind of using that as an excuse. And so I think that you kind of have to stop, like being angry about everything and just kind of like try to just give in go with it. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Rachel?
With visual impairments per se, treating somebody with a visual impairment like a normal person, and if you're describing an image per se, like if there's an image on the board, describing it like what does it look like, what is the color of it, how big is it? Because some of us with visual impairments, we can't see the depth and the details.
So saying this moves over here while they're giving a lecture doesn't help you very much. And did you want to talk about your cane?
Oh, yes, I use something called a long white cane that helps me find obstacles and drops in the pavement and stairs, and it keeps me from running into things. And I brought 2 of my canes that you guys can pass around and look at. There are 2 different styles.
Do you want to show them how to open it?
Yeah. And when I'm walking with my cane, I just roll it on the ground, and it helps me find obstacles. Those are both tips that roll, so I don't smack myself in the hips with it.
You can see how worn down it is, too.
I use them.
Yes, she does. Great. Anybody else?
I think when dealing with students, actually, I think when dealing with anybody with a disability or an impairment of some sort, you just have to treat them respectfully, treat them how you want to be treated. It's, you should treat people with kindness regardless of what they look like, who they are, or anything else.
Perfect, thank you.
Does anybody over here have any pet peeves?
Oh, Rachel's got a few, I'm pretty sure.
I have several.
I don't think we have that one.
Tell us, Rachel.
Please do not come up and grab me if you're trying to guide me somewhere or help me. Just ask me if I need help. Don't just come up and grab me, because that just drives me nuts. And it scares me too, especially if you come out from like the side, I don't see you. And identify yourself if you're there. Like say, hi, my name is. Even if I've seen you before, I may not know it. I may not remember who you are based on your voice.
I have a buddy who's in a wheelchair, and he hates it when people come up and just push his chair without asking, or if he needs help. So you just want to treat people as if they're like anybody else. I think that you kind of have to go into the situation, like, how people talked with you about before, if you have anxiety, you just have to look at the crowd like they're naked. So you just have to, you have to treat people.
The way you want to.
Honestly.
And treat people like they're naked.
Pardon me?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I just want to ask Rachel, because honestly, when I see someone who's visually impaired, my first instinct is to help them. Whether they're going upstairs or whether they're crossing the street, and I always think, oh, they should have someone helping them, And I mean, it's just my human nature to almost feel sorry for them, and I don't mean to say that to offend or anything like that.
You're not offending.
Okay, so I mean, like, if I see you going to cross the street and it's outside and there's lights and stuff, you're not offended if I come and say, hi, do you need some help going across?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Just don't grab her.
Right, no, I understand that. I just wonder, because I'm always that way when I see people downtown or,
Can we show how you would guide somebody who has a visual impairment? Because a lot of people will come up to her and go, hey,
Right,
come
yeah.
on. Not how we do it. So she's gonna grab the back of my hand, the back of my arm right here. And then I'm just gonna walk like a half a step ahead of her. And then I'm gonna put my arm back like this when we go through a door so she doesn't smack into it.
Which I have.
There's these little detailing things that you gotta think about. Here, I'll think about it.
Some
And
of
then-
us have smacked into stuff and we're not visually impaired.
Right.
We're just that talented,
So I worked with this gal who was guiding somebody who was blind, and then somebody else was coming towards them. And she completely freaked out and didn't know what to do. And so she let him crash into the
No.
But she's like, what was I going to do? And I'm like, blind guy approaching anything, but, just letting them crash into each other.
So I know a lot of, would it be helpful, like, would it depend on somebody when the light turns green, or for the crosswalk? Because I know a lot of them don't have the beepy sound. Like, not that you need help crossing the street, but would it be rude to be like, hey, the light turned green?
No, it's not, especially in I'm going to use the intersection here, Broadway as an example. We are trained how to cross streets by listening to the traffic going parallel to us. And, or some of us like me who have some useful vision who can see the light, the little walk thingy. Some, like the one on Broadway, I can't see that. That is so dim that it's hard to see. And there's no parallel traffic going to me. So I've had people say, yeah, the light's green, you can go. And that doesn't offend me at all.
So I worked down at the UW in the Disability Services office. I had a gal who was completely blind, that she had to cross 15th every day, several times. Really busy street. And so she's a cane user, and when her cane went over the edge of the curb, that's when she knew the curb was there. But inevitably people thought because her cane went over the curb, she was just gonna walk out in traffic, and they'd come grab her from behind. Yes, she hated it. She'd come up to my office, they did it again! I swear to God, these people are trying to help you, but there's so many different ways that you could do that. Verbally, hey, the light's red, you don't want to stop. Or even, if you had to, like Rachel said, don't come up beside her, or just lay a hand rather than grabbing somebody. I mean, that would be really unnerving for anybody. Make an informed decision about your faculty members. I mean, I think that's one of the smartest things that you can do. You're paying for this, you can pick and choose. If you come to me, I'll tell you, don't take this math guy, don't take that math guy. So,
I think that's what Tyler's done. He's always asking before you sign up for
It
classes.
is.
That's sad that it has to be like
It
that.
really is, but it's reality. It's reality.
Okay, so I just want to ask each person for an answer. If you lived in a perfect world and there's one accommodation that you could receive that you haven't received at the colleges you go to, what would it be?
Across the
Tyler.
board respect.
What was that?
Across the board respect.
Okay.
Shayna?
Um,
Oh, Martin.
that's kind of a hard question.
Yeah,
I'll
it
have to think
really
about
is.
that. Maybe these guys can answer.
I think across the board respect is the answer.
Yeah.
I really do. So have people like treated you differently, or like there was a gal that worked in my office who's a little person. She was 3 feet tall. People knew her, had worked with her. They'd come in and say, hey Kathy, how's it going? And how are you today, Christine? Seriously. Honest to God, I could not believe it. So have you guys had anybody just like make total assumptions or talk to you like, you know, you don't have a clue?
Happens often.
Yeah.
So,
You could be a faculty person that they don't know what your disability is, and I walk in with a dog, and it's all of a sudden, sometimes I'm not even there, they're just, how was your dog today? Well, ask him.
Sometimes, you know, like when I go to take my tests, you know, like for instance, in my math class, the instructor lectures on the same day he gives quizzes. And so like I get up and leave when he gives the quiz to the rest of the class. And so like lots of times people are like, oh, where do you go? And, you know, and I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, I take my test in the testing center. And they're just like, oh, okay. You know, so it's just like really kind of like.
so sometimes people pry a little bit more than they should.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have that same thing in my chemistry class this quarter, but I take mine in the Disability Services office and here in college. And what I usually do to keep from having to disturb the class when they hand it out and they go back is I just ask, what time should I be there? And that way I don't disrupt the class. And you learn very well how to open it because I don't like quiet.
Okay. Anybody else?
I tend to, if I catch myself before I go, I tend to stand up and get out of the room
Okay.
and walk around, and it will prevent me from locking up. But people think that I'm lazy, I'm not doing my work because I get off so often. It's because, especially when I'm sitting on a classroom and it's 3 hours, you know, I'm looking at a screen or coding for an hour or so, and all of a sudden, you know, I can just like that, I'm gone, and then I'll lose an hour just being there, just doing nothing, you know, and I'll fall behind, and they think that the reason I'm falling behind is because I'm lazy, I don't want to play.
So making judgments about things that they really don't know about.
I think that's the biggest thing too, because I mean, like, people do that, especially with people with disabilities, but even with, you know, even with other people, with people without disabilities, people keep making judgments about everyone that are completely inaccurate. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from, aside from respect, of course. I think the second biggest thing is to take away is that you can't really make a judgment call on somebody unless you
Right.
know them, and even if you know them, you're not them.
You
don't
have
know what's
no
going on in
idea
their
what's
head.
going on with the person next to you. And I think a lot of people with hidden disabilities get the, well, you look fine to me, you
Yeah.
know? Have you guys ever got that?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and
So I had a question. Yes, you had a question.
I did. I had an opportunity to talk with Martin and Shana about kind of their career plans, and I was just curious, kind of a two-part question. To what extent does your disability play into your career choices? And do you anticipate any difficulties or problems ahead in the workaday world out there? Ladies first.
So, the question was,
What role did it play in your decision-making in terms of the career choices that you may be making? And then what, if any, apprehensions do you have about being out there and
I think a motivating factor for me was, when I was younger, I excelled in sports. I was, a great artist. I'm a good cook. And, I continually found myself working into jobs that I hated. And I felt like the stupid person. I felt like the dumb person. And I found that I never gave myself the chance to be smart. And it's hard to say because, there were so many years where I grew up and I just felt stupid, And so right now, it's like when I started at North Seattle Community College, I was talking with you earlier about how I started out in elementary school learning math. I was adding and subtracting, And for the first time in my life, in that class, I got 100% on a math test. And that for me was huge, So I had experience working as a medical assistant, but I wasn't certified, so I couldn't find a job. And so I loved it. I loved the physicality behind it. And so I'm so good at doing things that are physical. I just find that kind of work to be fascinating. And I think that, with myself having a passion to help people with learning disabilities, help other people with disabilities, and kind of tying that into a thesis, I want to teach nursing someday. And so I kind of want to share, I want to give back to people. People like Michael Ann who helped me out.
So how about anybody else?
I've been in the IT industry for over 28 years, and before my deployment, that was all I was doing. So when I returned back from my deployment, I tried to reintegrate myself into the work environment. At the beginning, I found it extremely challenging. People couldn't understand some of the stuff that I was going through, some of the structure that I was looking for that was not there, and it was frustrating me. So after, I would say, about a year or so working with them, I would usually self-sabotage and I would lose my job because of that. My biggest concern now that I am in school pursuing my doctorate. Is that I am aware of where my challenge lies as far as dealing with the PTSD. It's not something that's going to go away. I just need to learn to live through it and not let it control me. So I know that if I start feeling like I'm going to space out, I need to get up and do something. So the job that I do decide to take needs to be a job that's going to keep me moving, that is going to keep me motivated. Because if I do something where, like a programmer, nothing against them because I love them, sit there for 8 hours just coding away, I think I'm going to do too well. So I've worked at data centers, and it's an environment where you're always moving, you're always responding to issues that clients have, and I'm good at it. I've been doing it for a long time. So I'm hoping that doesn't become an issue. But if it does, you know, I'm hoping that that the supervisors and the bosses that I have will be understanding enough that this is how we deal with that situation, and wouldn't mind getting re-educated with some of the issues that some of the employees have.
And I think it's really important to practice the accommodations that you would use in an employment setting, in an educational setting, because you're learning about that too. So now he knows, I gotta get up and go when something like this happens. And so it's easier, I think, to develop those understandings in an educational environment than in the employment environment.
Yes.
So how about the rest of you guys? What do you want to be when you grow up?
My main issue is accessibility with computer software. Because sometimes I use screen reading and magnifying software, which reads the material on the screen, and if that is not accessible, I'm sitting there.
What do you want to do as a child?
Physical therapy.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. What do you want to be when you grow up, Tyler?
Nutritionist.
Oh, nice. Okay. And Madonna?
Haven't decided.
Okay, good. Undecided. You don't have to know what you want to be when you start school.
In fact, that's usually when you find out what you want.
Exactly. And Lisa?
Well, I'm working towards opening my own childcare center, because I like to get in at the ground level and teach children how to be respectful of all people from the start. You teach them when they're young, hopefully it'll stick. And so I work part-time now as a volunteer, and I'm great with the children, as some of the teachers that I don't enjoy, but, and my dog, of course, doesn't get to go with me to a child care center, but he's semi-retired, but there's new medication that there wasn't 10 years ago when I got it that doesn't have the same side effects, so it's a little easier to take some of the newer medication and not have my dog. But for allergies' sake, can't take the dog to a child care center. But when I have my center, it'll be on about 3.5 acres, and there'll be animals there for the kids to learn. Some kids need to learn how to have empathy, and I deal with ADHD kids now, and ADD kids, and autism children, and sometimes teaching them with animals is easier than teaching them with a kid who's already kicked them. They don't really want to be empathetic to them at all.
Yeah.
So how do you teach that child who's socially acceptable out in the real world? You know, you start young, and you start them, teach them respect for life, even if it's just a little chicken, you know, teach them to respect the earth, and start young and work your way up.
Awesome. Those kids are going to be lucky that get to live here. So we're coming to the end of our time. I'm wondering if anybody has any last words of wisdom that they want to share. I know there's lots of questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to everybody. Does anybody have any last words?
I think for some of us, where you don't see the physical disability maybe, there's a lot of embarrassment around certain things. If I have a panic attack, it's embarrassing for me. So I might not be the one to go tell you, I'm freaking out, you know, I might just leave. And there's a lot of students on different campuses that have disabilities that you don't see. And so if you see a student leave class suddenly, give them a minute, you know, maybe they just need some time. If you see a faculty member just treating somebody, just anybody with disrespect, you know, say something, because teachers can intimidate students, it's, you know, even when you're in college, there's still bullies. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the faculty, and you need to take a stand and say, you know what, that's not right. And if they don't listen, go above them. But stand up for yourself and stand up for others, regardless of disabilities.
Go to the Disability Services office. Anybody else?
Be aware of who your veterans around you are, and things not to ask.
Yes.
So how was it in the field? Did you kill anybody?
People really ask you that, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
not
Okay.
Do not ask anyone that.
Be conscious that sometimes we're just not ready to open up. Okay, and it takes a while. There's a lot of barriers that get created because of some of the experiences that we have had in the field. And sometimes it takes a long time. I've returned from a I've gotten better. I'm in front of you guys and I'm talking, so.
Good job.
But yes, I still got a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of little things that set me off, and I'm dealing with it little by little.
So don't ask somebody something that you wouldn't ask somebody else. You know, I work with a lot of gentlemen who have quadriplegia, and guess what the first question a lot of people ask them? No, can you have sex?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I don't know, can you? Like,
I can't tell you how many times people have told me that that's right. So if you're not going to ask anybody else, don't ask a person with a disability. Are you walking up to everybody else, hey, can you have sex? No, I hope not. You want to say something?
New icebreaker question.
So first of all, to have compassion for people, really on a fundamental level, and as officers, you know, like I said earlier, it's really important to share the knowledge that I have with other people, and if you have other alumni or other friends or faculty that are doing something right, share it with somebody, and if you see somebody struggling, you know, take 5 minutes out of your day to just kind of like lend them a hand.
Well, please ask first. Just like the automatically pushing the wheelchair, you're taking control of their body away from them. So we would want anybody to do that to us. So ask permission first. Do you need help? I know another of my friends who has quadriplegia was sitting outside the stadium with a cup of coffee waiting for his daughter, and somebody walked by and put money in his cup. Oh, come on. Okay, anybody else? You got one dying question I can
One
tell.
last comment, actually, because it makes me aware of this, is that, you know, my life is made a whole lot easier because of the accommodations that are given to you. And I often don't think about that, but when I walk up to a door and I've got an armload of books, I can hit that button. There's so many things, the wider hallways, and I don't know, many younger people who are here didn't go to school when I went to school, and it's a different world, and I thank you for that, too.
It's called universal design.
Yeah,
You know,
design.
yeah, because
Exactly.
people with
So that fits us all.
strollers, skateboards, all that benefit from wheelchair ramps. Ooh, one more, the last one.
I was just kind of wondering, is there quite a few students who don't get diagnosed and so maybe aren't offered all the opportunities as people who
A
are
lot of people don't realize that they could get services. They think I provide services to somebody who's deaf or blind or uses a wheelchair, and that's it. So I've had people with learning disabilities, when I went to the class and talked about my office, and she said, well, I didn't know that you were talking about me. I'm like, it's in the title of my office, but still, people aren't aware. So that's why I try to do so much outreach at our college to let people know. And I do the whole disability awareness piece and communication piece and stuff like that too, because I don't think that very many people have opportunities to sit down and talk about interacting or communicating with people with disabilities, or have an opportunity to hear it straight from the person themselves. And so I think we need to talk about it, and we need to feel more comfortable. And I really appreciate you guys helping us with that. I mean, you really opened yourself up, and let's give them a big round of applause.
And you know, we're gonna have 4 panels, because we're gonna do an